How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, September 19th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to take you through everything that happened from the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Saturday, September 18th, and of course, I'm going to help navigate us through the world of sports one day at a time and taking a quick look of where we are. This is the third week of the college football season that actually took place yesterday. The MLB playoffs are around the corner as teams have already qualified for playoff contention, and some teams have already been eliminated. And at the same time, the WNBA playoffs are right around the corner as they start on the 23rd. The NHL season's about to start up at any moment as well, and let's not forget the NBA starts up next month as well. And of course, week 2 of the NFL takes place tomorrow as Washington has already beat the Giants, but the rest of the teams are going to play as well. So that's where we are about in the year. And starting with college football, all the games that went down yesterday, at least going through the ranked opponents one at a time. Starting with the number 1 team in the land, Alabama went to Florida to face off against the Gators, where they pulled off a 31-29 win at home. In this matchup on the road, they picked up this win. For the Gators, their quarterback Emory Jones threw for 195 yards and ran for 77 and a touchdown. He will go on to finish with 272 total yards of offense with a touchdown and a pick. Their leading rusher, Malik Davis, had 86 yards on 10 carries as he had a touchdown as well. And then for the Alabama Crimson Tide, their quarterback Bryce Young threw for 240 yards and a touchdown. And 3 touchdowns. All 3 of his touchdowns came in the first quarter. Their leading rusher, Brian Robinson Jr., had 75 yards on the ground on 15 carries and a touchdown. He also had 7 yards through the air on his one reception that went for a touchdown. He had 85 total yards and a touchdown on the day. And then on the defensive side of the ball, DeMarco Hellams would lead the team as he had 11 tackles on the day. With this win, Alabama is now 3-0 to start their season. They are now 1-0 in the SEC. With this loss, 11th ranked Florida is now 2-1 to start their season as they are now 0-1 in the SEC. This game went all the way down to the very end, but the Gators just couldn't pull it out. Bama won that one 31-29. The second-ranked team in football, the Georgia Bulldogs, hosted South Carolina yesterday, and they were able to pull off a 40-13 win as Georgia didn't score at all in the fourth quarter. For South Carolina, their quarterback Luke Doty threw for 153 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver Josh Vann had 128 yards on 3 receptions and a touchdown for himself. For Georgia, their leading passer JT Daniels threw for 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Their leading rusher Kendall Milton had 66 yards on 10 carries. Their leading receiver Adonai Mitchell had 77 yards on 4 receptions and a touchdown. Additionally, their leading tackler Nolan Smith had 8 on the day as he also had a sack and a half for himself. And also for South Carolina, Jalen Foster had 2 interceptions. They had the same dude that had 2 picks. But with this win for Georgia, they are now 3-0 as they are now 1-0 in the SEC. With this loss, South Carolina is now 2-1 as they are 0-1 in the SEC. Jumping out to the third-ranked team in the land, the Oklahoma Sooners face off against the unranked Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Oklahoma win this game 23-16 after they were able to, after Nebraska brought it to within a touchdown, Oklahoma was able to keep them at arm's length. For Nebraska, their quarterback, Adrian Martinez, threw for 289 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 34 yards and a touchdown. That will go on to give him 323 total yards of offense, along with 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Xavier Betts, had 61 yards on 3 receptions. Their leading tackler, Jojo Doman, had 12 tackles on the day for himself. And then for the third-ranked Sooners, their quarterback, Spencer Rattler, threw for 214 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for an additional 35 yards and an extra touchdown. He would go on to finish with 249 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Eric Gray, would have 84 yards on 15 carries. He also had 2 yards through the air. Their leading receiver, Jaden Hasselwood, had 61 yards on 6 receptions. And then on defense, DJ Graham would finish with an interception himself as Deshaun White's 10 tackles would lead the team. Nick Bonito had 2 sacks for the team as well, and Jalen Redmond had a sack and a half for the Sooners team. With this win, Oklahoma is now 3-0 to start their season, and with this loss, unranked Nebraska is now 2-2 to start theirs. Jumping out to the fourth-ranked team in the land, the Oregon Ducks hosted the unranked Stony Brook Seawolves, and Oregon will pull off a 48-7 win, as Stony Brook's only touchdown will come in the first quarter. For Oregon, their leading passer, Anthony Brown, threw for 159 yards and a touchdown. He would also run for a yard and a touchdown as well. Their other quarterback, Ty Thompson, threw for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns for himself. Through the air, Dante Thornton was their leading receiver. He had 60 yards on 2 receptions and a touchdown. And their leading tackler, Noah Sewell, would have 10 on the day. Also, Verone McKinley III would finish with 2 picks for himself. And also Bennett Williams would complete the third, as Oregon had 3 picks on the day. With this win, 4th-ranked Oregon is now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked Stony Brook is now 1-2 to start theirs. Jumping to the 5th-ranked team in the land, the Iowa Hawkeyes hosted the unranked Kent State Golden Flashes. Iowa would pick up a 30-7 win as they scored in every single quarter. For Iowa, their starting quarterback Spencer Petras threw for 209 yards and a touchdown. And then on the ground, Tyler Goodson, their leading rusher, would have 153 yards on 22 carries and 3 touchdowns. He would have a very big game for himself. He also had 9 yards through the air. Their leading receiver, Sam Laporta, had 65 yards on 7 receptions and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Jack Campbell would lead the team in tackles as he had 11. Lucas Van Ness and Joe Evans each would finish with 2 sacks. Zach Van Valkenburg would finish with a sack and a half, as the team had 7 as a whole. With this win, the Iowa Hawkeyes are now 3-0 to start their season. They are now 2-0 at home. With this loss, unranked Kent State is now 1-2. Jumping out to South Carolina, 6th-ranked Clemson hosted unranked Georgia Tech, and the Tigers were able to pull off a 14-8 win, as it was very close for most of the game. For the Tigers, their starting quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, would finish with 126 passing yards. He also ran for 46 on the ground, which would go on to give him a total of 172 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Will Shipley, had 88 yards on 21 carries, as he had both of the team's touchdowns. He also had 6 yards through the air. On the defensive side of the ball, Levante Bentley had 13 tackles and a sack for himself, 2.5 for loss, as he had a dominant game himself. Brian Breesy had 4 tackles and a sack and a half for himself as well. With this win, 6th-ranked Clemson is 2-1 to start their season, and with this loss, unranked Georgia Tech is now 1-2 to start theirs. Jumping out to Texas, the 7th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies hosted the unranked New Mexico Lobos, and after the Aggies would score double digits in the first 3 quarters of the game, they would beat the Lobos 34-0, as neither team scored in the fourth. For Texas A&M, their quarterback Zach Calzada would finish with 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Their leading rusher, Isaiah Spiller, finished with 117 yards on 15 carries and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Devin Dema, would finish with 100 yards on 2 receptions and a touchdown. Their leading tacklers, Damani Richardson and Antonio Doyle, would have 5 tackles each. DeMarvin Leal had a sack and a half, as the team had 4. And then Edgerrin Cooper would have the team's only pick. And with this win, the 7th-ranked Texas A&M Aggies are now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked New Mexico is now 2-1 to start their season. Now jumping out to the 8th-ranked team in the land, the Cincinnati Bearcats went out to Indiana to face off against the Hoosiers, the Big Ten team. And Cincinnati would pull away with a 38-24 win after outscoring Indiana 15-0 in the fourth quarter, coming into the quarter trailing by 1. For Cincinnati, their quarterback Desmond Ridder threw for 210 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. He also ran for 45 yards on the ground and a touchdown, so he had 255 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Jerome Ford, had 66 yards on 20 carries, as he had 2 touchdowns for himself. Their leading receiver, Alec Pierce, had 86 yards on 5 receptions, as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Deshaun Pace had 10 tackles for himself. The team would only finish with 1 sack. And Deshaun Pace, along with leading the team in tackles, he had an interception as well. The team would have 3 interceptions as a whole. With this win, the 8th-ranked Cincinnati Bearcats are now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked Indiana is now 1-2 to start theirs. Jumping out to Ohio, the 9th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes hosted unranked Tulsa. In this matchup, Ohio State would pull off a 41-20 win as they outscored Tulsa 28-14 in the second half, as well as they outscored them 13-6 in the first. For Ohio State, their quarterback C.J. Stroud threw for 185 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. And then their leading rusher, Travion Henderson, would break Eddie George's, I believe it was Eddie George's rushing record, as he would finish with 277 yards off of 24 carries and 3 touchdowns. He would also have 5 yards through the air, so that's 282 total yards of offense along with 3 touchdowns. Through the air, Ohio State's leading receiver, Garrett Wilson, had 70 yards off of 6 receptions and a touchdown. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Ronnie Hickman had 9 total tackles on the day for himself. Cameron Martinez would end up returning an interception, 61 yards for the house, in addition to his 2 tackles on the day. Ronnie Hickman would get the other interception for Ohio State. With this win, the 9th-ranked Ohio State Buckeyes are now 2-1 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked Tulsa is now 0-3. Jumping out to Happy Valley, the 10th Penn State Nittany Lions hosted the 22nd-ranked Auburn Tigers, and the Nittany Lions would win this one 28-20. For the losing Tigers in this matchup, their quarterback Bo Nix would throw for 185 yards on the day. Their leading rusher Tank Bigsby would finish with 102 yards off of 23 carries, as he had 2 touchdowns for himself. Their leading receiver Kobe Hudson had 66 yards on 4 receptions. Their leading tackler Chandler Wooten finished with 10 tackles on the day, as the team only had 1 sack. Roger McCreary would finish with 4 tackles and an interception on the day for himself. And then for the 10th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions, their quarterback Sean Clifford would complete 28 of his 32 passes, throwing for 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He would also run for 16 yards, so he had 296 yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Jahan Dotson, had 75 yards off of 10 receptions and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Smith would finish with 10 tackles on the day for himself. With this win, 10th-ranked Penn State is now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, 22nd-ranked Auburn is now 2-1 to start theirs. Jumping out to South Bend, Indiana, the 12th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish hosted the unranked Purdue Boilermakers, and Notre Dame would come away with a 27-13 win after Notre Dame was scoreless in the first quarter. For the Fighting Irish, their quarterback Jack Cohn would throw for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns as he completed half of his passes. Their leading rusher, Kyron Williams, had 91 yards off of 12 carries and a touchdown. He also had 47 yards through the air off of 2 receptions with an additional touchdown. He will go on with 138 total yards of offense with 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Avery Davis, had 120 yards off of 5 receptions as he had a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, J.D. Bertrand had 12 tackles, one of them for loss. Kyle Hamilton had 10. The team would finish with 3 sacks and 2 picks on the day, as Kyle Hamilton, along with his 10 tackles, he had an interception. And DJ Brown would have 7 tackles on the day, and he would have an interception for himself. With this win, the 12th-ranked Fighting Irish are now 3-0 to start their season, and with this loss, unranked Purdue is now 2-1. Jumping out to Los Angeles, the 13th-ranked UCLA Bruins hosted the unranked Fresno State Bulldogs, and Fresno State would end up upsetting UCLA at the very end, as it would be a touchdown by Jalen Cropper, as he got it from Jake Haener to beat UCLA in the Rose Bowl, and in what many would consider an upset, which is, of course, what college football is about. For the 13th-ranked UCLA Bruins, their quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson threw for 278 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 76 yards as he was the team's leading rusher. He would go on to finish with 345 total yards of offense on the day. Their running back, or their rusher Zach Charbonnet would have 19 yards on 6 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. They had 2 receivers with over 100 yards. Kyle Phillips had 113 yards off of 7 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Cam Brown had 111 yards off of 5 receptions and a touchdown for himself. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Kenny Churchwell III would finish with the only interception of the day. For Fresno State, their quarterback Jake Haener threw for 455 yards alongside 2 touchdowns and a pick. Their leading rusher, Jalen Cropper, would finish with 141 yards off of 14 receptions and a touchdown. He also ran in a ball. He also ran in a ball for a touchdown, so he would go on to finish with 142 total yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Their leading rusher, Ronnie Rivers, had 136 yards on 21 carries and 2 touchdowns. He would also finish with 26 yards through the air, so that would give him 162 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Evan Williams had 12 tackles to lead the team. With this win, unranked Fresno State is now 3-1 to start their season. And with this loss, 13th ranked UCLA is now 2-1 on the year. Jumping out to Las Vegas, unranked UNLV, the Rebels, hosted the 14th ranked Iowa State Cyclones, and Iowa State would end up beating UNLV 48-3 as they scored in every single quarter. They scored a touchdown at least in every single quarter. For Iowa State, their quarterback Brock Purdy threw for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 33 yards, which would give him a total of 321 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Breece Hall, had 100 yards off of 21 carries and 2 touchdowns. Their leading receiver, Xavier Hutchinson, would have 133 yards off of 10 receptions and 2 touchdowns on the day. On the defensive side of the ball, Ishim Young would finish with an interception on the day for himself as well. With this win, 14th ranked Iowa State is now 2-1 on the season. And with this loss, unranked UNLV, which is regarded by many as a basketball school, is now 0-3 on the year, proving the haters right. Jumping out to West Virginia, the unranked Mountaineers hosted the 15th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies. And the Mountaineers would beat Virginia Tech 27-21 as the difference would come in the first half. West Virginia would outscore Virginia Tech 24-7 in the first half. For the 15th ranked Virginia Tech Hokies, their quarterback Braxton Burmeister threw for 223 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 11 yards on the ground, giving him 234 yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Caleb Smith, had 58 yards off of 6 receptions on the day. Their leading tackler, Dax Holyfield, had 10 tackles as he had a sack for himself as well. And Jermaine Waller would finish with an interception on the day as he would go on to finish with 3 tackles as well. For West Virginia, their quarterback, Jared Doge, would finish with 193 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick. Their leading rusher, Letty Brown, had 161 yards off 19 carries and a touchdown. He also had 35 yards through the air. That's 196 total yards of offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball for West Virginia, Alonzo Adai would finish with 10 tackles and a sack. Jared Bartlett had 5 tackles as 3 of them were sacks. Taj Alston had a sack and a half for himself as well. Winston Wright Jr. would return a couple of kicks. He wouldn't do it. But with this win, unranked West Virginia is now 2-1 to start their season. And with this loss, 15th ranked Virginia Tech is now 2-1 as well. Jumping out to Buffalo, the unranked Buffalo Bulls hosted 16th ranked Coastal Carolina. And in this matchup, the Chanticleers would be Buffalo 28-25, and a game that would come down to the very end. Buffalo would score the touchdown, but they would not come back and score again. For the 16th ranked Chanticleers, their quarterback Grayson McCall threw for 232 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He also ran for 12 yards on the ground, so that's 244 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Shamari Jones, had 149 yards off of 16 carries and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Javon Haley, had 91 yards off of 4 receptions and a touchdown for himself. Their leading tacklers, Silas Kelly and Teddy Gallagher, had 10 tackles. Teddy Gallagher went to my high school, so of course, shout out to Teddy Gallagher in Loyola High School. And with this win, 16th ranked Coastal Carolina is 3-0 to start their season. With this loss, unranked Buffalo is now 1-2 to start their season. Jumping out to Mississippi, the Ole Miss Rebels hosted unranked Tulane, and Ole Miss was able to beat Tulane 61-21, even though Ole Miss did not score at all in the fourth quarter. For them, their quarterback Matt Corral threw for 335 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 68 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, if I'm doing that math correctly, that is 403 yards and 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, So, of course, a virtuoso game from him. Their leading rusher, Jerrion Ely, would finish with 103 yards off of 15 carries. He also had a yard through the air. He had 104 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Chance Campbell had 8 tackles leading the team. He also had a sack. And with this win, 17th ranked Ole Miss is now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked Tulane is now 1-2 to start theirs. Jumping out to Provo, Utah, the BYU Cougars hosted the 19th ranked Arizona State Sun Devils, as this was the yet another top 25 matchup that took place. In this matchup, BYU would end up beating Arizona State 27-17. The difference would be the first half. BYU outscored, or just the second quarter, where BYU just outscored Arizona 14-0 to 14-0 to make it a 21-7 game at the end of the first half. For 19th ranked Arizona State, their quarterback Jaden Daniels threw for 265 yards and 2 picks. Their leading rusher, Daniel Ngata, would finish with 82 yards off of 8 carries and a touchdown as well. Rashad White would finish with 71 yards off of 15 carries and a touchdown. He also had 65 yards through the air off of 9 receptions. That would give him a total of 136 yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Kyle Sowell had 11 tackles for himself. And then Merlin Robertson and Jack Jones would each finish with an interception. For BYU, their quarterback Jaron Hall would throw for 214 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He also ran for 38 yards, which would give him that would be a total of 252 yards of offense. That was a little slower than usual, but I'm back. Their leading rusher, Tyler Algier, had 69 yards off of 21 carries and a touchdown. And then their leading receiver, Gunnar Romney, had 95 yards off 6 receptions and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Max Tooley had 10 tackles for himself. And Malik Moore, Max Tooley would have an interception along with his 10 tackles. And also Malik Moore would finish with an interception to go along with his 4 tackles. With this win, 23rd ranked BYU is now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, 19th ranked Arizona State is now 2-1. Jumping out to the 20th ranked team in the land, the Arkansas Razorbacks hosted Georgia Southern, and they were able to pull off a 45-10 win to start their season off 3-0. For Arkansas, their quarterback KJ Jefferson threw for 366 yards and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Dominique Johnson, had 72 yards on 5 carries and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Treylon Burks, had 127 yards off of 3 receptions and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Catalon would lead the team in tackles. He had 9. Trey Williams had 4 tackles as he had a sack and a half. With this win, 20th ranked Arkansas is 3-0 to start their season. And on the losing end of this matchup, Georgia Southern is now 1-2 to start theirs. Jumping out to the 21st ranked team in the nation, the North Carolina Tar Heels hosted unranked Virginia to pick up their first win in the ACC. For North Carolina, their quarterback Sam Howell would throw for 307 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a pick. He also had 112 yards on the ground, which would combine for 419 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher Ty Chandler had 198 yards off of 20 carries, as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Their leading receiver, Josh Downs, had 203 yards off of 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Kamen Rucker had 5 tackles as he had 2 sacks on the day. And Jaquarius Conley had the only interception for the team. With this win, 21st ranked North Carolina is 2-1 to start their season as they are 1-1 in the ACC. With this loss, unranked Virginia is now 2-1 as they are 0-1 in the ACC. Speaking of the ACC, jumping out to the 24th ranked team in the land, the Miami Hurricanes hosted the unranked Michigan State Spartans, and Michigan State would pull off a 38-17 thrashing to remain undefeated this year. For the 24th ranked Hurricanes, their starting quarterback and preseason Heisman candidate De'Aaron King would throw for 388 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. He also ran for 7 yards on the ground. Their leading receiver, Charleston Rambo, had 156 yards off 12 receptions. He had both the receiving touchdowns of the day. Their leading tackler, Bubba Bolden, had 10 tackles for himself as well. And then from unranked Michigan State, their quarterback, Peyton Thorpe, threw for 261 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Kenneth Walker III, had 172 yards off 27 carries. He also had 17 yards off 3 receptions through the air with a touchdown, so he had 189 total yards of offense attributed to himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Xavier Henderson had 8 tackles for himself. Angelo Gross and Ronald Williams had interceptions for themselves as well. With this win, unranked Michigan State is now 3-0 to start their season, and with this loss, 24th ranked Miami is now 1-2 on the year. Last but not least, in the top 25, 25th ranked Michigan hosted unranked Northern Illinois as Michigan was able to pull off a 63-10 win. That's 9 touchdowns, and they didn't score it all in the fourth quarter. For 25th ranked Michigan, their quarterback, Cade McNamara, threw for 191 yards and a touchdown. Their leading rusher, Blake Corum, had 125 yards off 13 carries and 3 touchdowns. He also had 13 yards through the air, so that's 138 yards of offense. Donovan Edwards had 86 yards on 8 carries as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground as well. Hassan Haskins had 56 yards off 9 carries as he had 2 touchdowns as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Josh Ross had 6 tackles. The team would finish with no sacks on the day as Jamon Green would have an interception for himself. With this win, 25th ranked Michigan is now 3-0 to start their season. And with this loss, unranked Northern Illinois is now 1-2 to start theirs. That is the entire Saturday, as that was the 3rd week of college football. Taking a look at what's going on this upcoming week, it appears as though Fresno State is going to face off against unranked UNLV on Friday. So I'm not going to pick up with college football until then. Quickly glancing at what's going on in the MLB from yesterday, starting off in the Bronx, the New York Yankees hosted the Cleveland Indians. The Indians would end up beating the Yankees 11-3 after scoring 7 of their runs in the 5th inning. For New York in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Luis Gil. He allowed 3 runs in 4.1 innings pitched as he struck out 6. With this loss, he's 1-1 on the year. In the Yankees batting lineup, their elite third baseman, DJ LeMahieu, would go 2 for 4 with a run. Their elite designated hitter, Giancarlo Stanton, would go 1 for 4 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 30th home run of the year. And then their catcher, Gary Sanchez, went 2 for 4. For the Cleveland Indians, the win went to their starting pitcher, Aaron Savali. He allowed no earned runs off of 4 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 4. With this win, Aaron Savali is 11-4. In the Indians batting lineup, their designated hitter, Franmil Reyes, went 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. He will go on to hit his 30th home run of the year. Also, their first baseman, Yu Chang, went 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and 2 runs. He would hit his 8th home run of the year. Their second baseman, Owen Miller, went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And then their shortstop, Andres Jimenez, would go 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a run. Jimenez would hit his 3rd home run of the year. And with this win, the Cleveland Indians are now 72-74. That is the 2nd best record in the American League Central as they've won 4 of their last 10 games. They trailed the Chicago White Sox by 11 games in the division at the moment. And with this loss, the New York Yankees are now 83-66. That is the 4th best record in the American League East, win percentage-wise. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games as they now trail the Tampa Bay Rays by 9 games in the division. And right now, they trail the Toronto Blue Jays for that 2nd American League wildcard spot by half a game as they are the first team on the outside of the picture looking in at the moment. Jumping out to Boston, the Boston Red Sox hosted the Baltimore Orioles as they're fighting for that same spot as the Yankees. The Red Sox were able to beat the Orioles 9-3 to pick up their 85th win of the year. They would break their tie. The score was tied at 3 until the 5th inning, where Xander Bogaerts' RBI single gave the Red Sox the lead, and then 5 runs later, here they are. For the Orioles in this matchup, the start was given to Zach Lothar. Zach Lothar would allow 3 earned runs in 3.1 innings pitched as he struck out 2. The loss would go to the Orioles' 2nd relief pitcher on the day, Mike Baumann. He would allow 5 earned runs in 2 innings pitched as he struck out 2. He would pitch the entire 5th and 6th innings for Baltimore. With this loss, he's 1-1. In the Orioles batting lineup, their first baseman Ryan Mountcastle went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his 30th home run of the year yesterday. He is the first Orioles rookie, I think, to do so ever. For the Boston Red Sox, the start was given to Nick Pivetta. Nick Pivetta would allow 3 earned runs in 3.2 innings pitched as he struck out 3. The win was given to the Red Sox second relief pitcher Tanner Houck. He would allow no earned runs in 2.2 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this win, Tanner Houck is 1-4 on the season for the Red Sox. In the Red Sox batting lineup, their center fielder Kike Hernandez went 2 for 5 with 2 runs. Their all-star third baseman Rafael Devers went 3 for 5 with an RBI and 3 runs. Their all-star shortstop Xander Bogaerts went 3 for 5 with 4 RBIs and 2 runs. Their first baseman Bobby Dalbec would go 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs for himself. And with this win, the Boston Red Sox are 85-65. That is the second best record in the American League East, as they've won their last 4 games and they've won 6 of their last 10. They trailed the Tampa Bay Rays by 7.5 games in the division, and they are holding on to that top spot in the American League wild card, sitting 1 game ahead of the second-place Toronto Blue Jays in that race. With this loss, the Baltimore Orioles are now 47-101. They now have the worst record in all of baseball at the moment, just to get a sense of where they sit. And also, they trail the Tampa Bay Rays by 44.5 games in the division. They are one of 4 teams eliminated from playoff contention this year. Jumping out to Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Reds hosted the defending World Series champs and Max Scherzer, and the Dodgers would end up beating the Reds 5-1 as they held the Reds to only 3 hits all game as a team. For the Reds in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Sonny Gray. Gray allowed 4 runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this loss, he is now 7-8 on the year. In the Reds batting lineup, nobody on the team would have more than 1 hit, and that would be attributed to great pitching from LA. The win went to their goated starting pitcher, Max Scherzer. Scherzer allowed no earned runs in the first 7 innings of the game. He only allowed 2 hits, and he struck out 7. With this win, he's now 5-4 on the year, and of course, who else would get the save for the Dodgers but Kenley Jansen? He would only have to get 1 batter out, and he struck him out. With this save, he now has 34 saves on the season. In the Dodgers batting lineup, their all-star second baseman Trey Turner went 2 for 5 with a run. Their all-star third baseman Justin Turner went 2 for 4 with a run as well. And with this win, the Los Angeles Dodgers are 95-54. That is currently the second best record in the National League West, as they have now won 7 of their last 10 games. They trailed the San Francisco Giants by 2 games in the division, although they have the second best record in all of baseball. They are holding on to the first wild card spot, as they are one of 2 teams that have already clinched a playoff spot for them. One of 3 teams that have clinched a playoff spot for themselves in the National League. They sit 16 games ahead of the St. Louis Cardinals, who are holding on to that second spot at the moment. With this loss, the Cincinnati Reds are now 77-72. That is the third best record in the National League Central. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They trail the Milwaukee Brewers by 14.5 games in the division. And at the moment, they trail the St. Louis Cardinals by 2 games for that second National League wildcard spot, as the Cincinnati Reds are still the first team on the outside looking in on the National League side. Jumping out to Toronto, the Toronto Blue Jays hosted the Minnesota Twins, and in a crucial game that the Blue Jays needed to win, they were able to come back from being down 2-0 to beat the Twins 6-2. They were trailing going into the bottom of the 4th. Marcus Semien would hit a solo home run that would shorten their deficit to 1. Teoscar Hernandez's 3-run home run would put the Blue Jays in the lead, and then Bo Bichette's 2 RBI single would put them up by 4. For the Minnesota Twins in this matchup, the loss went to their starting pitcher, Bailey Ober. He allowed 4 earned runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this loss, he's 2-3. In the Twins batting lineup, the only player that brought any runs home was their third baseman and former American League MVP for the Blue Jays, Josh Donaldson, as he went 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his 24th home run of the season. For the Toronto Blue Jays, the win went to their starting pitcher, Steven Matz. He allowed 2 earned runs and 3 hits in 5.2 innings pitched. He would strike out 5 before getting pulled in the 6th, and with this win, he's now 13-7. In the Blue Jays batting lineup, their all-star shortstop, Bo Bichette, would go 3 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. Their all-star second baseman, Marcus Semien, went 1 for 5 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 40th home run of the year. With this win, the Toronto Blue Jays are now 83-65. That is the third best record in the American League East, win percentage-wise. They've won 7 of their last 10 games as they trail the Tampa Bay Rays by 8.5 games in the division. And at the same time, they are holding on to that second American League wildcard spot, sitting 1 game behind the Boston Red Sox, who are holding that first spot, and they sit half a game ahead of the New York Yankees, who are the first team on the outside of the American League playoff picture looking in. With this loss, the Minnesota Twins are now 65-84. That is the worst record in the American League Central. They've lost 7 of their last 10. They trail the Chicago White Sox by 19.5 games in the division. They are one of 4 teams in the American League who are disqualified from playoff contention this season. Jumping out to our nation's capital in D.C., the Washington Nationals hosted the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies would end up beating the Nationals 6-0 after scoring 3 runs in the first and scoring 3 runs in the fourth. Off the fourth, it was a 3-run home run from Trevor Story. For the Washington Nationals in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Patrick Corbin. He allowed 6 runs in 4 innings as he struck out 5. With this loss, he's 8-15. In the Nats batting lineup, nobody on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. That would be attributed to great pitching from Colorado. For the Rockies, the win went to their starting pitcher, Kyle Freeland. He allowed no earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 7. With this win, he's 6-8. In the Rockies batting lineup, their center fielder, Garrett Hampson, went 2 for 4 with 2 runs. Their second baseman, Brendan Rodgers, went 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 14th home run of the year. Their elite shortstop, Trevor Story, went 1 for 5 with 3 RBIs and a run as Trevor Story would go on to hit his 23rd home run of the year. Their first baseman, CJ Cron, went 2 for 4 with a run. And with this win, the Colorado Rockies are now 70-78. That is the 4th best record in the National League West. They've won their last 5 games, and they've won 7 of their last 10. They now trail the San Francisco Giants by 26.5 games in the division. And with this loss, the Washington Nationals are now 60-88. That is the worst record in the National League East after being the champions in 2019. They've lost their last 3 games, and they've lost 7 of their last 10. At the moment, they trail the Atlanta Braves by 7 games in the division, and at the moment, they are one of 4 teams in the National League who can no longer contend for playoff contention. Jumping out to Tampa Bay, the American League leaders hosted the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers would end up beating the Rays 4-3 as they scored all 4 of their runs in the first couple innings. For the Tampa Bay Rays, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Ryan Yarbrough. Yarbrough would allow 4 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 4. With this loss, he's 8-6. In the Rays batting lineup, their right fielder, Manuel Margot, would go 3 for 3 with 2 runs. Their designated hitter, Jordan Luplow, would go 2 for 2 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his 11th home run of the year. And for the Detroit Tigers, the start went to Tarek Skubal. He allowed 2 earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 2. With this, the win would end up going to the Tigers' first relief pitcher, Jose Urena. He would allow 1 earned run in 3.1 innings pitched as he pitched from the 4th until he got pulled in the 7th. He would strike out 4. With this win, Urena is 4-8 on the season. The save would go to former American League Rookie of the Year, Michael Fulmer. Fulmer allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out a batter, and with this save, he now has 10 on the season. In the Tigers batting lineup, their left fielder, Akil Baddoo, would go 2 for 4. He was the only player on the team with more than 1 hit. With this win, the Detroit Tigers are now 71-78. That is the 3rd best record in the American League Central. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. They now trail the Chicago White Sox by 13.5 games in the division. With this loss, the Tampa Bay Rays are now 92-57. That is still the best record in the American League East and the American League. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games as they sit 7.5 games ahead of the second place Boston Red Sox in the division. The Rays are still holding on to that number 1 seed in the playoff picture, sitting ahead of the 2nd seed Houston Astros out west and the 3rd seed Chicago White Sox in the Central. Jumping out to Miami, the Miami Marlins hosted the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates would end up beating the Marlins 6-3 to make the Marlins the 4th team in the National League who has been eliminated from playing in the 2021 playoffs. The Pirates would score... they would gradually add their runs up. And for the Miami Marlins in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Edward Cabrera. Cabrera would allow 3 runs in 4 innings pitched as he struck out 7. With this loss, Edward Cabrera is 0-2 on the year. In the Marlins batting lineup, their catcher, Nick Fortes, would be the only player who had more than 1 hit. He went 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and a run as he hit his very first home run of the season. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, the win would go to their starting pitcher, Bryce Wilson. He allowed 2 earned runs off of 4 hits and 5 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With his win, Bryce Wilson is 3-7. In the Pirates batting lineup, their third baseman, Ke'Bryan Hayes, would go 2 for 5 with 2 runs. Their first baseman, Yoshi Tsutsugo, would go 2 for 4 with a run. And then their right fielder, Cole Tucker, would end up going 3 for 5 with an RBI. With this win, the Pittsburgh Pirates are 56-92. That is the worst record in the National League Central as they've won their last 2 games. They've won 7 of their last 10. They trailed the Milwaukee Brewers by 35 games in the division, and they are one of 4 teams in the National League who are no longer competing in playoff contention. And with this loss, the Miami Marlins are now 62-86. That is the 4th best record in the National League East as they've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 5 of their last 10. They trail the Atlanta Braves by 15 games in the division. They are officially out of the running when it comes to making one of the wild card spots, but technically they are still in contention for the National League East crown because they're one more game away from being eliminated there. Jumping out to Dallas, the Texas Rangers hosted the Chicago White Sox, and the Rangers were able to beat the White Sox 2-1. After the White Sox tied the game up at 1 at the top of the 6th off of a Yasmani Grandal solo shot, it would be an RBI single from DJ Peters that would give the Rangers their 55th win of the year. For the Chicago White Sox, the loss went to their starting pitcher, Lance Lynn. He allowed 2 runs in 5.1 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this loss, he's 10-5. In the White Sox batting lineup, no one on the team would finish with more than 1 hit, and that would be attributed to great pitching from Texas. The Rangers starting pitcher would be Spencer Howard. Howard would allow no earned runs and only 1 hit in 3 innings as he struck out 3 batters. The win would go to the Rangers' first relief pitcher on the day, Drew Anderson. He allowed 1 earned run in the next 3 innings of the game. He pitched the 4th through 6th innings, and he struck out a batter. With this win, he's 1-1. The save would end up going to the Rangers' closer for the day, Joe Barlow. Barlow would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out 2. He now has 7 saves on the year. In the Rangers batting lineup, their shortstop, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, will go 2 for 4. Their first baseman, Nathaniel Lowe, will go 2 for 4 with a run. Their designated hitter, Andy Ibanez, will go 2 for 4 with a run. With this win, the Texas Rangers are now 55-93. That is the worst record in the American League West. They've won 5 of their last 10 games as they trail the Houston Astros by 32 games in the division. And the Rangers are one of 4 teams that have been eliminated from playoff contention. With this loss, the Chicago White Sox are now 84-64. That is the best record in the American League Central as they've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They sit 11 games ahead of the second-place Cleveland Indians in the division. Right now, the White Sox are holding the 3rd seed in the playoff picture as they sit behind the 1st seed Tampa Bay Rays out east and the 2nd seed Houston Astros out west. Jumping out to Houston, speaking of the Astros hosted the Arizona Diamondbacks. This game would go to 10 innings where the Diamondbacks would outscore the Astros 3-1 in that same 10th inning. The first run would come from Cole Calhoun, and then the difference would be a 2-run shot from Dalton Varsho. For the Houston Astros in this matchup, the start would go to Lance McCullers Jr. He allowed 3 runs in the first 6 innings of the game as he struck out 8. The loss would go to the Astros closer, Yimi Garcia. Yimi Garcia would allow 3 runs in the 10th inning as he struck out a batter. With this loss, he's 3-9. In the Astros batting lineup, their first baseman, Yuli Gurriel, will go 2 for 5 with a run. Their right fielder, Kyle Tucker, will go 2 for 4 as well. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, the start was given to Humberto Castellanos. He would allow 3 earned runs in the first 5 innings of the game, striking out 3. The win will go to the Arizona Diamondbacks setup relief pitcher, J.B. Wendelken. He will go on to allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out a batter. With this win, he's 3-2. The save will go to the Arizona Diamondbacks closer for the day, Tyler Clippard. Clippard would allow 1 run in 1 inning pitched, as with the save he now has 6. In the Arizona Diamondbacks batting lineup, their catcher, Dalton Varsho, will go 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. He will go on to hit his 11th home run of the season. He was the only player with more than one hit for the Diamondbacks, as everybody in the lineup got a hit, worth noting. With this win, the Arizona Diamondbacks are now 48-100. That is the worst record in the entire National League, the worst record in the National League West. They have now won 3 of their last 10 games as they trail the San Francisco Giants by 45.5 games in the division, which is also the gap between that's just the gap in the National League as a whole, because the Giants have the best record in the National League and the Arizona Diamondbacks have the worst record. With this loss, the Houston Astros are now 87-61. That is the best record in the American League West. They've lost 4 of their last 10 games as they sit 6 games ahead of the second place Oakland Athletics in their division. Right now, they're holding on to the 2nd seed in the American League playoff picture as they trail the 1st seed Tampa Bay Rays of the East, and they currently sit ahead of the 3rd seed Chicago White Sox, who are sitting on top of the Central. Jumping out to Kansas City, the Kansas City Royals hosted the Seattle Mariners as they have now been freshly eliminated from the playoffs. They were still able to spoil a little bit of the Mariners season. For the Seattle Mariners in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Yusei Kikuchi. He would allow 3 earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this loss, he's 7-9. In the Mariners batting lineup, their first baseman, Ty France, went 2 for 3 with a run. He was the only player on the team with more than 1 hit. One of 2 players that actually got a hit. For the Kansas City Royals, the start and win would go to Chris Bubich. He allowed 1 earned run off of 2 hits in 6.1 innings pitched as he struck out 2. With this win, he's now 5-6. In the Royals batting lineup, their elite second baseman, Whit Merrifield, went 2 for 5 with 2 runs. Their shortstop, Nicky Lopez, went 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run. Their left fielder, Andrew Benintendi, will go 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. Their third baseman, Adalberto Mondesi, went 2 for 5 with an RBI and a run. Their center fielder, Michael Taylor, went 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs and a run. And their right fielder, Hunter Dozier, will go 2 for 3 with a run. With this win, the Kansas City Royals are 67-81. They have the 4th best record in the American League Central as they've won 5 of their last 10 games. They trail the Chicago White Sox by 17 games in the division as they are one of 4 teams in the American League who have effectively been eliminated from playoff contention. With this loss, the Seattle Mariners are now 79-69. That is the 3rd best record in the American League West. They've lost 6 of their last 10 games. They trail the Houston Astros by 8 games in the division as they are now sitting 4 games behind the Toronto Blue Jays for that 2nd American League wildcard spot. The Mariners are the 3rd team on the outside looking in as they trail the New York Yankees and the Oakland Athletics in that race. Jumping out to St. Louis, the St. Louis Cardinals, who are still on a hot streak, were able to beat the San Diego Padres 3-2. The Padres would lead 2-0 going into the bottom of the 8th inning. For the Cardinals, after Tommy Edman would bring a run home on a sacrifice fly, it would be a 2-run home run from Tyler O'Neill that would shift the game in the Cardinals' favor. For the San Diego Padres in this matchup, the start was given to their elite starting pitcher, Yu Darvish. He allowed no earned runs and only 3 hits in 7 innings pitched as he struck out 9. The loss would go to the San Diego Padres' only relief pitcher on the day, Emilio Pagan. He would allow 3 earned runs in the 8th inning, and he would blow his 4th save of the season. And with this loss, he's 4-2. In the Padres batting lineup, their elite third baseman, Manny Machado, will go 2 for 4. He and Victor Caratini will be the only players with more than 1 hit. Caratini went 2 for 3 with an RBI. For the St. Louis Cardinals, the start went to Adam Wainwright. He allowed 2 earned runs in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 2. The win was given to the Cardinals' setup relief pitcher, Justin Miller. He allowed no earned runs in the 8th inning. And then the save would go to the Cardinals' closer, Giovanni Gallegos, who would go on to allow no earned runs and strike out a batter in the 9th inning. He would pick up his 9th save of the year. In the Cardinals batting lineup, their second baseman, Tommy Edman, went 2 for 3 with an RBI. He was the only player on the team with more than 1 hit. With this win, the St. Louis Cardinals are now 78-69. That is the 2nd best record in the National League Central. They've won their last 7 games. That is the longest active win streak in baseball at the moment. They have won 9 of their last 10 games, and they sit 12.5 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers in the division. And right now, they are sitting 2 games ahead of the second-place Cincinnati Reds in the wild card race, just to show how close that is. And then they also sit 16 games behind the LA Dodgers, who have already clinched a playoff spot, just to show you what the wild card's looking like. With this loss, the San Diego Padres are now 76-72. That is the 3rd best record in the National League West. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 7 of their last 10. They trail the San Francisco Giants by 20.5 games in the division, and right now they are sitting 2.5 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals for that second National League wildcard spot, as alongside the Philadelphia Phillies, they are the second team on the outside looking in, only trailing the Cincinnati Reds as well. Jumping out to Queens, the New York Mets hosted the Philadelphia Phillies, and the Phillies would end up beating the Mets 5-3, scoring 3 of their 5 runs in the 7th inning. For the New York Mets in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Carlos Carrasco. He allowed 2 earned runs off of 5 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this loss, Carrasco was 1-3 on the season. In the Mets batting lineup, their center fielder, Brandon Nimmo, will go 2 for 4 with an RBI and 2 runs as he hit his 6th home run of the season. Their elite first baseman, Pete Alonso, went 2 for 3 as well. For the Philadelphia Phillies, the win went to their starting pitcher, Aaron Nola. He allowed 1 earned run and off of 4 hits and 5.2 innings pitched as he struck out 9. With this win, Aaron Nola is 8-8. The save would go to the Phillies closer, Ian Kennedy. Kennedy would allow no earned runs in the 9th inning as he picked up his 24th save of the season. In the Phillies batting lineup, their second baseman, Gene Segura, will go 2 for 5 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs as he hit his 13th and 14th home runs of the season. Their elite right fielder, Bryce Harper, would go 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs. And then their third baseman, Freddie Galvis, would end up going 2 for 3 with an RBI and a run. With this win, the Philadelphia Phillies are 76-72. That is the second best record in the National League East. They've won their last 4 games, and they've won 5 of their last 10. They now sit 1 game behind the Atlanta Braves in the division, win percentage-wise. They both have 76 wins, but the Phillies have 2 more losses. With this loss, additionally, the Philadelphia Phillies are sitting 2.5 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals for that second National League wildcard spot. The Phillies are the second team on the outside looking in, tied with the San Diego Padres, as they also sit behind the Cincinnati Reds by half a game. With this loss, the New York Mets are now 72-77. That is the 3rd best record in the National League East. They've lost their last 5 games. That is currently the longest losing streak in the MLB at the moment. They have lost 8 of their last 10 games, and they trail the Atlanta Braves by 5.5 games in the division. Jumping out to Milwaukee, the National League Central leaders were able to beat the Chicago Cubs 6-4 to clinch a spot into the playoffs for themselves. They were able to break the 4-4 tie in the bottom of the 8th inning, thanks to a solo home run from Manny Pena, so that would go up, and then off of a Colton Wong RBI single, Pablo Reyes coming home would be the run to put them up 2. For the Chicago Cubs in this matchup, the start was given to Justin Steele. I keep saying that. Justin Steele would allow 2 earned runs off of 2 hits and 4 innings pitched as he struck out 4. The loss would go to the Cubs' second relief pitcher on the day, Scott Effross. He would allow 2 earned runs as he started off the 8th inning but didn't finish. With his loss, he's 2-1. In the Cubs batting lineup, their left fielder Ian Happ would go 3 for 5 with 2 RBIs and a run. He hit his 23rd home run of the season. He was the only player on the Cubs with more than 1 hit. For the Milwaukee Brewers, the start was given to their all-star starting pitcher, Corbin Burns. He allowed 3 earned runs and 6 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 11. The win would go to the Brewers' elite relief pitcher, the reigning National League Rookie of the Year, Devin Williams. He would allow no earned runs in the 8th inning as he struck out 3. With this win, he's now 8-2 on the season. The save will go to the Brewers' elite closer, Josh Hader. He allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning as he struck out 2. He would pick up his 33rd save of the season. In the Brewers' batting lineup, their catcher, Manny Pena, would go 2 for 3 with 2 RBIs and 2 runs. His 2 hits were his 11th and 12th home runs of the year. And then also for the Brewers, their third baseman, Pablo Reyes, would go 2 for 4 with a run. With this win, The Milwaukee Brewers are now 91-57. They have the best record in the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have clinched the third of the 5 available National League playoff spots. As it looks as though it is very close. I'm not going to. They've won their last 2 games, and they've won 7 of their last 10. They currently sit 12.5 games ahead of the second place St. Louis Cardinals in the division. And right now they're holding on to the second National League playoff seed as they sit behind the first seed San Francisco Giants out west. And they still sit ahead of the third seed Atlanta Braves, who are sitting on top of the National League East. With this loss, the Chicago Cubs are now 66-83. That is the 4th best record in the National League Central. They've lost their last 4 games. They've lost 8 of their last 10, and they trailed the Milwaukee Brewers by 25.5 games in the division. Jumping out to San Francisco, the National League leaders hosted the Atlanta Braves, and they were able to shut the Braves out, winning it 2-0. The only runs would come in the 4th inning off of a 2-run single from Kurt Casale. For the Atlanta Braves, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Charlie Morton. He allowed 2 earned runs in 5 innings pitched as he struck out 3. With this loss, he's 13-6. In the Braves batting lineup, no one on the team would finish with more than 1 hit. That would be attributed to great pitching from San Francisco. For the Giants, the start would go to Alex Wood. Alex Wood would allow no earned runs in 3 innings pitched as he struck out 4, the former Braves pitcher. The win would go to the Giants' first relief pitcher, Zach Little. Zach Little allowed no earned runs in the 4th inning as he struck out 3. With this win, he's 4-0. The save would go to the Giants' closer, Dominic Leone. He will go on to allow no earned runs in the 9th inning. This will be his 2nd save of the year. In the Giants' batting lineup, their shortstop, Brandon Crawford, went 2 for 3 with a run. With this win, the San Francisco Giants are 97-52. That is the best record in the National League West, the best record in the National League, and the best record of all of baseball. They've won their last 2 games. They've won 8 of their last 10. They sit 2 games ahead of the second place LA Dodgers within their division, and they're holding on to that number 1 seed in the National League playoff picture, sitting ahead of the 2nd seed Milwaukee Brewers and ahead of the 3rd seed Atlanta Braves of the East. With this loss, the Atlanta Braves are now 76-70. That is still the best record in the National League East, even though they've lost their last 4 games. They've lost 6 of their last 10. They still sit a game ahead of the second place Philadelphia Phillies in the division. And right now they're holding on to the 3rd seed in the National League playoff picture, sitting behind the 1st seed San Francisco Giants and the 2nd seed Milwaukee Brewers at the moment. Last but not least, jumping out to Anaheim. The Los Angeles Angels hosted the Oakland Athletics, and in this matchup, the Athletics would beat the Angels 3-1. All 3 of their runs would come in the 1st inning, and then for the Angels in this matchup, the loss would go to their starting pitcher, Jose Suarez. Suarez would allow 3 earned runs in 5.2 innings pitched. He would strike out 3 before getting pulled in the 6th, and with this loss, he's 7-8. In the Angels batting lineup, their all-star designated hitter, Shohei Ohtani, would go 2 for 4 with a run. Their left fielder in this matchup, Jose Rojas, would go 2 for 3 with an RBI. And then for the Oakland Athletics, the win would go to their starting pitcher, James Caprillion. James Caprillion would go on to allow no earned runs off of 2 hits in 6 innings pitched as he struck out 5. With this win, he's 8-5 on the season, and the save would go to the A's closer for the day, Andrew Chafin. He allowed no earned runs in the 9th inning, and with the save, he now has 5. In the A's batting lineup, their right fielder, Chad Pinder, went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a run. And also their first baseman, Matt Olson, went 1 for 3 with an RBI and a run as he hit his 36th home run of the year. With this win, the Oakland Athletics are now 81-67. That is the 2nd best record in the American League West. They've won their last 4 games, and they've won 7 of their last 10. They are tied with the Red Sox for the longest active win streak in the American League at the moment. They trail the Houston Astros by 6 games in the division, and they trail the Toronto Blue Jays by 2 games for that 2nd American League wildcard spot. They're in that 2nd seed on the outside looking in as they sit only behind the New York Yankees in that respect. With this loss, the Los Angeles Angels are now 72-76. That is the 4th best record in the American League West. They've lost their last 2 games. They've lost 6 of their last 10, and they trail the Houston Astros by 15 games in the division for the moment. Right now, that is what the MLB is looking like. Taking a look at what's going on in the world of soccer. Starting off in the Premier League, Arsenal was able to beat Burnley 1-0. With this win, Arsenal is I'm sorry. I'll wait till all the matchups for the week are done just to show where they are. Liverpool was able to beat Crystal Palace 3-0. Their first 2 goals coming from their elite wing duo of Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah. Sadio Mane scoring his 100th goal for Liverpool. Manchester City was able to draw versus Southampton 0-0. That was going on in the Prem. Jumping out to La Liga, Atletico Madrid was able to draw with Athletic Bilbao as that score ended up 0-0. In the German Bundesliga, the reigning Bundesliga champs, Bayern Munich, was able to beat VfL Bochum 7-0. They would get as their elite German winger, Leroy Sané, would score a goal. Their elite midfielder, Joshua Kimmich, would score 2. Their elite winger on the other side of Sané from Germany as well, Serge Gnabry, scored a goal. Their elite Polish striker, Robert Lewandowski, would end up breaking a Bundesliga record. He would scoring a goal in his 13th straight home match. I don't think Messi and Ronaldo have done that. And then, of course, the final goal from Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, Robert Lewandowski's backup striker. In Italian Serie A, the reigning Serie A champs, Inter Milan was able to beat Bologna 6-1. Their first goal coming from Lautaro Martinez. Their last 2 goals coming from Edin Dzeko. And, of course, big win there. And then in French Ligue 1, the reigning Ligue 1 champs, Lille, fell short to Lens 1-0. And, of course, that's what's going on with soccer there. And, of course, once all of today's matchups from soccer and the NFL and the MLB are complete, I will come back tomorrow with another episode of The Elite. For the time being, I want to thank the college football, ESPN, MLB, and FIFA websites for the facts and figures that I needed for this episode. I, of course, want to apologize for all the names that I butchered through this. It's a lot of names, a lot of people, but I do plan on getting them right eventually. And with that said, I want to thank everyone once again for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode tomorrow once all of today's episodes are over. Once again, today is Sunday, September 19th, 2021. And like I said, once everything is done, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, September 20th for another episode. Until then, thanks for listening to my piece. I hope all is well, and peace out. I'll catch you with an episode, right? I'll catch you with 2 individual profiles today as Trey Young, the elite point guard for the Atlanta Hawks, turns 23 today, and Stephon Gilmore, the elite cornerback for the New England Patriots, turns 31 today. Thanks once again. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Peace out.